So I will start off with the questions. If you have any questions for them that are follow-up questions, that's fine. You have something in between you think of, that's fine. So we'll start with you, Carl. How did you get started in the directing business?
You know, I caught a lucky break after I graduated film school. I won a couple of film festival awards for a music video that I actually made in film school. And that got me to the attention of Tough Gong Pictures, which was started by Cedella Marley, Bob Marley's daughter.
Wow.
So I got hooked up with all kinds of reggae artists, from Sizzler to Burning Spear, Sister Carol. And from then, I went on to do hip-hop videos and a bunch of rock videos. At the same time, I was a PA, believe it or not, at Saturday Night Live. So I was meeting producers and production managers and coordinators, and they were always interested in seeing my reel, and that led me to being signed to a production company right around 1995.
Wow. Most famous person you met on Saturday Night Live?
Wow. They're all the most famous. I tell you, the person I was most impressed with was Mike Meyers, actually.
Oh, okay.
His ability to just take a look at the script and just completely improv right on the spot and make it even funnier than what the writers wrote.
And Disco, how about you? You've been on both sides of the camera.
I have. I got my degree in theater from University of Central Florida. I got out, I had absolutely no idea what I was gonna do with that degree. So I joined the Army. Brilliant.
Smart move.
Yeah, I mean, because if you don't know what you wanna do, you will find out very quickly what you don't wanna do when you're in the Army. I mean, that's it, you don't wanna be in the Army. That's what it is. So the Army trained me to be a broadcast journalist. So I was in the Army, but I was pretty much doing broadcast journalist. So I was shooting, editing, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and we did everything top to bottom. When I was over in Kuwait, I started a TV station, and it's up and running. Well, it's not up and running now, but it was up and running. And so when I got out, as a trained broadcaster, I started editing and moved from editing into directing and continued my acting, and then just moved into writing, and now I'm just doing all of it.
Wonderful. And then Tommy, been on both sides of the camera as well.
Yeah.
Tell us how you got started in this.
I started out in theater, on stage. I worked for a community theater in Newport Richey, Florida, called Richey Suncoast Theater, which was created by Thomas Mean, one of the greatest silent film actors ever. So we had a nice, rich history there. I started there just as a human Swiss Army knife, doing whatever they wanted me to. Worked my way up, so I started, you know, getting some bit parts, and finally I worked my way up to a lead where I played Lenny in Mice of Men, touring company of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Went up to New York for a while, went to the Actors Studio for a little bit, where Charles Durning, he was at Berghoff. He just died, God bless his soul. One of the greatest character actors we've had. Yep, you're right. And Tony Randall, and I got to learn from a lot of those people. I came back to Florida, where I had a nice job waiting for me doing a really bad film. It was my first time into film. So I learned everything what not to do on this film, and types of directors that I did not want to be. All right, because I loved human beings, I loved actors, and I loved the craft of acting, and I loved telling visual stories. And I was so happy for this gentleman that brought me on this picture and just totally ruined everything for me, because I picked up the pieces and went on and started doing commercials. Again, I worked my way up. I had to work my way up again once I got into film as a PA, grip, electric. I've done every set, I've been in every position you can do. I'm like the Adam Richman, but not for food, but with film. You know? Man versus food. So that's my story, and I'm still loving doing it. I loved getting bit by the teaching bug. That was the greatest.
And Carl, you do music videos predominantly. So what is different in your casting process for music videos as opposed to film or television?
Well, you know, a lot of times music videos, well, sometimes music videos are just primarily concerned with the performers, right? But when it comes to having certain narrative videos or certain narrative elements in the music video, or having models or actors, right? It's the same as it would be for traditional filmmaking, right? So we hire a casting director, and the casting director kind of whittles down from the process to make it more manageable for me to pick. So instead of me going through 150 people, they'll pick the best 15 out of the 150. And then I'll go ahead and see the 15 people. I'll have them read lines, even though I don't record sound or their dialogue, because a lot of their emotion comes from the talking as well.
Okay.
You know, so I'll create scenarios and create vignettes that the actors go through that I know I'm going to shoot. It gets a little weird sometimes when I'm casting for female models. So I like to have females in the room with me because, you know, I have to see how they move. So
Right.
just to leave the creep out factor out of it, I have a bunch of women with me. It's like, you know, so that makes the process more comfortable for them. So
Right.
I guess the biggest difference between traditional filmmaking and music videos is primarily when you're using female models and you have to get them to dance and move.
Okay. So Disco, what's the difference between a executive producer and a director in the room of a casting or a callback?
It depends on the project. The executive producer is not necessarily going to be in the room for the casting. The director might not be in the room for the casting. I've been, as an actor, I've been in several castings where it's myself and somebody filming me. It's not the casting director, it's not the director, it's not the executive producer, it's just somebody putting me on tape to send to those people. I don't know where it goes. And there's been other times where it's myself, the casting director, and the executive producer. And the executive producer is going to make that decision on what they are looking for because they want creative control over it. So it just really depends on the project. On Disney projects, the executive producer is not in the room. It's the casting director and the director. They make the decision. And somewhere down the line, somebody makes that decision of whether or not it's a yay or nay on that commercial. On smaller projects, the executive producer is going to be in the room and making all the decisions because it's their commercial. It just depends on the project that it is.
Okay. Well, I've spent a lot of time directing my own projects, and I've been on the other side as an actor. All three of you have done the same thing. How different is it for you now, sitting in front of people coming into a casting, you know, having been on the other side of that camera? What does it do to you as a person now, receiving talent as opposed to being talent?
Me being talent? How do you know I was talent? How'd you find that out?
Dude,
I didn't
do
think
my
anybody ever
research.
saw that movie.
I've actually got a video I'm going to play right now.
I could have said so.
You know what? The only time I've been talent, it's weird. When I was ADing, somebody would say, "Oh, we need somebody to play this part, and you do it." You know, and so I just get thrown into the fire, or sometimes my arm would be in something, or my fingers on something like on a keyboards or something like that. I did do one film where I was acting. The director begged me to do it. It was a blast. I don't consider myself an actor at all, but I just played myself and read lines. You know, is basically what I did. But I got an appreciation for what actors do.
And that's kind of where I was going with this. You know, if you have not been on that side of the table where you've been the person auditioning, I think it has a big effect on you when you're sitting there and having experienced it. Yeah, so I was just wondering what that take was for you.
I think all directors or people who want to direct should be on the other side of the camera just once to know what it feels like. And they should also audition once so they know how nerve-wracking it can be.
Absolutely.
You're sitting outside a room coming in to meet people that you may or may not know. Typically, it's that you don't know. And you are sitting there with a copy going, am I good enough? What will they think of me? I am about to be judged. And I will go home afterwards and try not to cry. Because I don't know what they will think, because they will say at the end of the casting, thank you very much. And you will leave the room, and you'll have no idea whether or not they liked you or they didn't like you.
Right.
So that's why I think directors should be on this side. And most of the time, here's what you have to understand. Nobody's out to get you.
Right.
The director, the casting director, the producer, they want to be your friend. They want you to succeed. That's what they want, because they have a problem, and you might be the solution to their problem. And the faster they can get to that solution, the faster they can get onto their project.
True.
And it's also a business. I mean, I've talked to a lot of casting directors about this. You know, the more they can bring in great talent for the director to see, it's better for them, and that's better for their pool, their pool of talent. How about you, Tommy? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I learned to be vulnerable. to be totally vulnerable and put it all out there. As a director and as a casting director, I've done both. I like being there, and I like to make them feel like I'm on their side and they're going to succeed. And I don't mind. A trick that I use, they work so hard on their headshots. They work so hard on, even if they got 10 credits on the back, maybe they got 1 from doing a commercial. I go down to the special interest that's at the bottom, and I just take a look at that. And for me, that gives me my script when the actors come in, and I will. On mine, I've been called out on this many times. I've had directors say, "Oh, so you can spin on your head?" Yeah? Really? Let me see it. I've gotten many parts by doing that, just because they could see how flexible I was and what I'm willing to do. I'll jump off any cliff for you. That's just being vulnerable, and I like to do that. I don't make them all spin on their heads or anything like that, but I find something in there that I can connect with. And I think understanding, studying acting, studying history and theory of it, helped me understand their language. So now, even when I work with directors, sometimes I understand that they might not have. And I'm like, oh boy, they don't know the language yet. Right. So I gotta figure it out. And a lot of times they're very good, they just don't know how to say it. That's why I think, especially in the classes that we teach, you get part of that here. It's one of the only acting classes, or part of it, that you even get. Mm-hmm. And I think you really need to tune into that, because that'll help you definitely in your future.
Yeah. So,
he's got a good story. You got a great story about Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure most of you have heard it, so I won't bore you with it. But it's a favorite of mine that I tell all the time. Yeah, it's a great story about Tom Hanks. You want to hear it? Is that
No, you didn't
okay.
see what he just pulled a hair off of your shirt.
He pulled a hair off my shirt?
That's the way this panel's going to go. We're just going to,
We're just going to do this.
I also did continuity for a while for National Geographic.
And wardrobe as well.
Sorry.
So, okay, yeah. Well, I'm not going to get away with it. I went to an audition for, Tom Hanks was doing Earth to the Moon here in Orlando. And, I had not auditioned for that high of a caliber director in my career at that point. And so I was waiting outside, and that's exactly what happened. So
I love it every time.
Yeah, it's just like that. You think that Tom Hanks doesn't have power? Let me tell you. He does not want that story told, and that's exactly what he does every time.
Wow.
So I was at a Disney MGM and outside of a window, and inside of the room is this beautifully bathed table with Tom Hanks sitting there with the casting director from North Carolina at that time. And so I was getting more nervous the more I looked in the room, and I saw him in there, and I'm walking back and forth with my script, and I get up, and they say, okay, when you're on deck. So I walk in the room, and it felt like I was walking through slow motion to get over to the table, and halfway over, Tom Hanks jumps out of his chair, runs over and goes, hey, it's Kevin O'Neill. And he shakes my hand, and for a second, I'm thinking, wow, Tom Hanks knows me? That is so cool. And then I look down and I see my headshot had just been slid over, and my name, Kevin O'Neill, was right there. So I think the point of that is that Tom Hanks, and this is why I'm glad you brought this up, Tom Hanks is an actor. He started on that side of the table, and he knows what it feels like to walk into, Tom Hanks. He's been in that situation many times, so he wants to calm you down and make you as relaxed as you possibly can be. And that was probably one of the best auditions I think I ever had. I didn't get the part. Just thought I'd throw that in. But it was really one of the best auditions I think I ever had, because he was gracious enough to make me feel comfortable. And when I went out the room, I watched in the window, and sure as heck, the next actor came in, he ran over and shook their hand and did the same story. So it wasn't just me, as much as I'd like to think that.
But he did make you feel special.
He did, and I think that, you know what, if you're a director in this room and you want to, if you're going to be a part of a casting callback someday as a director, I think it's important that, you are familiar with what it's like to be standing there sweating bullets, not knowing if you're going to be able to pay your rent and your car payments that actors go through on a daily basis, because it will ground you more, and it will actually make you a stronger director in casting, because as you said, you find the things, you guys have all said, you find the things to tap into that will bring better performances. And by the way, actors are nervous. I don't know if you know that, but they're very nervous. So if they're in a situation where they have an opportunity to relax, it's going to be on your end. It's not going to be on their own end. So anyway, I had another question about, and this has always been a fascinating topic for me, union versus non-union. Your take on it. What do you all think about that?
I think there are advantages to both. It depends where you live, and it depends what position you are. As far as the director is concerned, you know, I'm not in the Directors Guild. I'm in the Producers Guild. I think it could possibly benefit you in terms of, you know, making you recognizable to certain groups of people in certain circles that you wouldn't be privy to if you are in a Directors Guild. I've never needed to be, you know, directing commercials and music videos.
Sure.
So far for me, I don't see it as an advantage necessarily. Plus, you got to pay dues.
Right.
And
Right.
if you're not getting the work and you still have to pay dues, that, you know, that could be complicated.
Does it shrink the field of work, you think? If you
I've
have the
never-
guild membership?
The only time it became a problem for me was when I was first ADing, and I was a non-union first AD, and I was ADing a film, the Directors Guild. So the rules are the AD must be guild as well, but the director really wanted me on board the project. So I didn't get first AD credit. They gave me associate producer credit,
Oh,
but I
okay.
still did the gig. So that was the only time that was a conflict for me.
Associate producer's not a bad credit.
No,
No.
not at all.
Disco?
It's what Carl said. It's where you live.
Yeah.
If you live in New York and LA and you want to direct television, films, you're going to be in the DGA. In Florida, not necessary. The smaller markets, not necessary. You can, but it might not always work to your advantage. So if it's a necessity, yeah, go for it. But if it's not, you know, it's not essential. And especially with the way new media is taking off,
True.
you can direct so many things that are
True.
non-union that people are putting together and still make good money
Yeah.
without being part of the union.
Yeah.
So and the union is trying to figure out what to do. Both the actors and the directors unions are figuring out, hey, how can we capitalize on this new stuff that's coming out? So they're still working on that.
And that's interesting because now, I don't know if you've paid attention to this, I'm sure you have, reality TV is just taking over. I'm watching posts coming in daily, literally daily, for reality shows that are shooting all over Florida. So what does that mean to casting? Disco, I think you've been involved with some reality television, you were telling me recently. What is a casting like for something like
You know,
that?
it's interesting, and this is going out over the internet, right? Reality TV isn't real.
So is it.
I only know that because I signed contracts to not tell you that. No, I didn't. The casting for reality TV is very interesting in that when they cast, they'll tell you, we're casting for characters. We are casting for characters. They want people who are obnoxious. Extroverted, thank you. Not always obnoxious. Obnoxious is not always extroverted.
Extroverted.
People with big personalities. So they're looking for characters.
Honey Boo Boo.
With big, Honey Boo Boo, right? Honey Boo Boo's mom.
Right.
I had to look up Honey Boo Boo's mom today. I didn't know who that was, but now I do. So is it similar? They're not coming in and reading lines.
Right.
They're coming in and telling you a story about themselves. Or they're telling you something interesting that they've done, or some way that they can interact, or some special skill, or something that's unique, as opposed to somebody reading lines with another human being to make it seem real.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
And
does.
they don't have to worry about a craft, you know.
Right.
They're just being themselves.
Right.
And they're being picked for who they are. And also, you know, I don't work in reality TV, but I have a lot of friends that do, and they've told me this as well. Certain shows like Bad Girls Club, for example, like they'll have to do psyche evals on some of the girls, and they have psychiatrists come in, and they find the person that's crazy up to a point.
Just on the
Not gonna kill
fringe.
somebody, right? Crazy,
Just,
but
they're not going to harm
just not gonna
themselves or
kill
kill anyone,
Right.
but they're looking for crazy people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, because I think back to, I knew a girl who went through the very first Biggest Loser. And she said when they were interviewing her, they were asking her all these questions that had nothing to do with weight. And what they were doing is finding the buttons
Yes.
that they could push. Because you were saying, you know, you're looking for people that are outgoing, but also, what are your fears? Like fear factor.
Right.
You know, they knew that they were afraid to be underwater. They knew they were afraid to be, you know, isolated in a chamber.
They're not out looking for Navy SEALs to be on Fear Factor.
Right.
They want screaming people that are afraid of everything.
That'll
You know,
be challenging
Just a little bit and then they get really scared. That's who they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, so that makes good television.
Right.
It does.
Right. Okay, Tommy, question for you. Improvisation in casting. How do you feel about that?
This is kind of big because you were talking about union, because I know you can't really do that anymore with the union. That can't be, at least it can't be videotaped.
Right.
Which is kind of bad because it puts the actor at a disadvantage. But now because of YouTube and because of everybody, you know, the paparazzi mentality,
Yes.
there's actors out there that's something sacred that's done behind closed doors that used to be videotaped where somebody is, you know, playing a part that it's not really them, but they have to play. I think it was Rosie Perez, you know, in Pretty Woman, who was showing a lot of skin and a lot, you know, that ended up getting out, and it hurt her career a little bit. I think improvisation, I love it, because I'm from that school.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful, but it doesn't make or break the actor, and I always tell them that. Would you like to do some improv right now? It's not going to make or break you, but a lot of times it'll create a lot of tension in the scene. And sometimes on set, I've done this with my actors who I know don't like improvisation. I'll say, hey, let's improv the lines. And what I'm doing is I'm actually filming them. After I get and they're flustered, going, oh, geez,
But those are good moments for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
where
you can
those
use, yeah.
beautiful moments come out of. I mean, I'm not going to say that their children just died on Highway, you know, 19 over there. Now cry for me, you know. I'm not going to do anything like that. I can get to a place where that's not going to happen. But I love improvisation. I mean, the school I come from is if you don't hear a cut by the director, you keep going.
Keep going.
You know, that's my take on it.
SNL was totally about improv.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, the director, because I worked with the film unit as well, where we did the parodies, the commercial parodies. So Jim was the director. He's still the director there. He's been there for like 30 years. And Jim would basically say, okay, do the line, and then he would say, okay, now go crazy. And they loved it. The actors loved it. They would just. Judd Apatow does it the same thing. You know, a lot of it works really well for comedy. You know, because they just go punchline, 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 punchline after they get the take that they were supposed to get on paper. And it's sometimes, a lot of times, what they improv is better than what was written.
True. Yeah.
I like it and I don't. I like it when...
Well, let me ask you this. Are you liking it or not liking it as an actor or as a person on the other
As
side?
an actor, I don't mind it.
Okay.
As a director, sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't for me. I typically don't use it because the actors, that's why they have lines.
Yeah.
You give them copy. They come in, if you've given them a professional actor or somebody working on their way to be a professional, if you've given them 2 pages of dialogue, you give them 15 minutes, they're coming into the room with that memorized. So you really shouldn't need that much improvisation to get across whether or not they can communicate and tell a story effectively with somebody else.
Okay.
Now on the set, and I know Scorsese uses it a lot, they will improvise for a half a day of rehearsal, but that's all being written down. So when they go to shoot, it's not improv anymore. So you do it in rehearsal.
I think the spontaneous improv probably works better for comedy.
Yeah.
For comedy, more than anything.
I would think so. I, personally, myself, as a director, when I'm doing castings, the reason I will pull a script out of an actor's hand is that they get so locked up into the script. And I find that if I can just get them to get away from it, what I'll find in those situations is just how much do they really know other than the words. And that's my concern, is I like actors who know their lines, but I also like actors who have thought about the character.
Oh.
And they should be able to go beyond just the text. For me, that's just my personal feeling. So
When I'm doing rehearsals in scene study, I'll use improvisation as a tool to get the emotional content that I feel that I'm not getting because they're still they're stuck on the words, like you were
Right,
saying. They're
right.
just stuck on the words. They can't get off the words on the page. So forget it, forget the script, forget the words. Just be here right now together with whoever you're with in the room.
In the moment.
In the moment.
Yeah.
Be in the moment. Let me see. You do that.
Right.
And then we can worry about
Then you
everything
can build
else.
on everything
Then you
else.
can build,
Yep.
yes, from there.
True.
You shouldn't have to use classical style or method or anything. A real good actor is right there in the moment at the time.
True.
I know a lot of people like to laugh at this guy, but Tom Cruise is one of the best at it. I hate to say it, but he is. I mean, he might jump on couches on Oprah and do whatever he does in his
Not
personal
anymore, he
life.
doesn't.
in his personal life, but that cat has to have a reciprocal line of communication of emotion with whoever he's with. I mean, he doesn't understand method and he doesn't understand classical style. He's just doing it. You know.
So I haven't really been paying attention out here. Does anybody have any questions? I can continue. Yes.
You guys talked a little bit about
Yeah, you have to go on mic. There you go. You got to make it.
I get a microphone. Hi, great content, by the way. Thanks very much for being here. Going back to union and non-union, had a question about Taft-Hartley, and a lot of people don't know, but I've researched it, and I just want to understand it a little bit better. I know there's a 30-day process and all this stuff. Can you give me some more understanding about what Taft-Hartley is in the union for SAG?
I know what it is. It's basically, it's a segue between being non-union and union. And Taft-Hartley is where you've done X amount of jobs, and then you were able to become a SAG actor. And I don't know what it is. When I joined, it was 3 jobs you had to do.
Yeah.
And is it still 3? Is it? I think it's
What
still
is it
3.
now? I thought it was
No, the rules are-
3 speaking.
Yes.
roles?
3 speaking, yeah, on camera.
Yeah.
You had to be on camera speaking, and I think it's always been that rule. And the idea, of course, is to not flood the SAG market with more people than they need.
Okay, so here's the interesting thing, and you guys will have to do the research on this because I'm giving you misinformation. I'm telling you that right now. But with the new media contracts, SAG has done something interesting. For instance, if you are the producer of a new media project, but you are also the actor in the new media project, and you put it out there on the internet, you can get into SAG. Okay? Dave Fazekas of the
Screen Actors
Actors Guild here in Florida would be the person to contact to talk more about that. The new media rules are different. I haven't studied all of them, so that's why I'm just telling you it's just a little bit of misinformation, enough to get me in trouble, and to you in trouble. You have to do the research yourself.
It is changing. The rules are changing drastically, and it's now global conversations. They used to talk about national, and they used to talk about regional. We're talking about a whole look at, because we've got the video access to the internet, and internet's where we're going. I mean, we're going to be watching TV, and you know that.
Absolutely.
It's going to change a lot of what we've.
Isn't that why they strike? There was a strike in 2000. Wasn't that one? Or
Yep.
99?
That was what, yes.
The contract, and also
And that's where
biggest-
reality television came from, because
True.
the Writers Guild, we couldn't use any scripts, so they were just taking anything from anybody, and that's where it came.
That's very true. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, I gotta get a mic. He'll come. He's very fast. Watch out.
That's the mic.
So the question I have is actually a very serious question. I've always been wondering, because I feel like we may have scratched a little bit on it with your class and everything like that. But so when I ask this, it's very serious, and that is, a lot of movies and everything sometimes sell because it surrounds like love and everything like that. And I've always kind of wondered how do you even direct love and everything like that, like the bed scene and everything like that, because sometimes people go see a movie solely for that scene, whether those two actors or the actor and actress
Oh, you're
are
talking about
the
a love
hot thing
scene.
right there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm actually very curious about because
you're
you see
talking
in
about
everything, music videos,
chemistry?
movie, TV, reality TV even.
Yeah.
So,
I have a good one for that. Basically, I had to direct a rock video for a guy named Edsel, right? Edsel Dope, the rock group called Dope. And he wanted to do this really intense love scene where the women were topless. So it was 3 women and him in this giant bed.
Of course it
And-
was. Of course it was. That's what I cast myself in.
Remember that one movie?
That's why you do it. But the one thing I learned is I wrote the love scene out and I gave them copy. And I was like, and basically they had words on the page. And then I said, okay, let's do a rehearsal, guys. Everybody was on the bed, staring at each other. It's choreography. It's literally like a dance. So I had to choreograph every move. And actors are good at faking it, right? Don't marry an actress.
That's why marriages don't work with stars,
But if they do their job correctly and I do my job correctly, it'll seem natural, right? But for my experience, it's all about choreography. It's like choreographing a dance.
How about this? I use sports analogies in class. It's how many times have you thrown the football before you get to the game, right? As an actor, I've taken years and years of professional acting training, okay? It is not a big deal for me to meet a girl. Wait.
Wait a minute.
It is not a
It's
big
on the
deal.
internet.
It is not, it's not a big deal for me to meet an actress. Hey, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And either I'm their boyfriend or their husband, and I've got 2 kids. I walk into castings all the time, and hey, my name is, I'm usually Hispanic dad number 1. I get a lot of calls for that. So I'll meet somebody right then and there. Your name is Maria. Maria, hi, Maria. My name's Disco. Today we're the family. Oh, great, you got kids. Whose kids are these? Are they your kids? No, they're somebody else's kids. Great, these are my kids. What's your kids' names? Blah, blah, blah. We go on like that, and then we go into the casting room like that as a family.
And then
Instant family. It's like instant family. We walk in, hey, how you doing, honey? We hold hands and we hug. I try to make out with them every once in a while, but it usually doesn't work out. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, but you've got a family. Yeah, I've got the 2 little kids, and you just have to do it because you're a professional. And those people those people don't want to waste the time with like, oh, are you afraid to touch each other?
Yeah.
No, I'm a professional. And if it goes more intimate like that, for example, a love scene, I'm going to be familiar with that person. It's just not just going to be a random thing. It's going to be, are you comfortable with me touching you? Are you comfortable with me touching you here? Are you comfortable with me putting my tongue in your mouth? Are you comfortable? That's really what we're talking about. How far are we going to take this? And you have that discussion.
There are rules that everybody has, and everybody abides by the rules. And like he just said, Disco just said, you ask before you do. And the funny thing about that, because I think that the chemistry is the most important thing when I'm casting, and I'm always looking for how well this person worked with this person and so on. And it's not something that just works. There are some people that literally will lean away from each other even though they're supposed to be in love, and you can see that body language, you can pick up on it. The funny thing about this whole love thing, I had to do a love scene one time. And the funny thing about it, I sweat bullets about this the whole time going over there, because I'm just thinking, what is gonna be? And you get there and there's cameras and there's lights and there's crew members and everybody's talking by the numbers, okay, we're going to this shot. You're not even thinking at that point other than just perform.
It's clinical.
Yeah, it's very clinical, and it's not what it looks like. It looks amazing when it's all edited together and the beautiful lights and the music, but it's not anything like what you think. And the funny thing is there are no classes. I should teach this, there are no classes in your love scene, I've never seen one. And yet, when it happens, you're just thrown into the mix. That's why I was so afraid of it.
It was in Raging Bull.
There's a scene for that?
Yeah, the whole movie. It's a fight scene. No, wait a minute. It's a fight scene, and that's why we shoot at 48 frames. That's why we shoot at 60 frames.
Yeah.
That's why you never really see the punch actually connect, but you hear the sound effect, and you see the head go down, and then you see the beauty of it, the poetry of it can be directed the exact same way.
Right, choreography.
Right, and you don't have to see
It's
anything, but what your mind will, it's like the scene in Psycho, the chef, your mind is gonna fill in it's very gestalt, it's gonna connect the dots, when really there's nothing there.
True.
So that's how I look at it too, with that. And also I think scheduling, I know a lot, and you guys would know more of this about me, I always have my AD come up and say, I've scheduled it this way, even for very emotional scenes. We do them towards the end.
Right.
Because if I'm going to go double with the unions and I'm going to have to start paying people double time, I'm going to make sure that it's only a shoestring crew that I have at that point. So there's fewer eyes looking at them at that time.
Yep.
so it's more comfortable. And breath mints.
Right.
And hygiene
Oh,
is
yeah, and
very
that's
important.
Hygiene is huge.
yeah. Good point when you said that too. It's usually 9 times out of 10 it's a closed set.
Yeah.
Great. Anyone else? Yes, in the back.
As actors, what do you appreciate the most about a good director?
Good question.
Someone who knows what they want and someone who's not going to tell you how to act. They'll tell you where to go, just get from here to here,
Right.
and then let me do my magic. That's what I love.
I think a director's job is to tell me when I'm not giving them what they want and to let me do what I want when I am giving them what they want. So if I've rehearsed a scene with somebody else and it's good, I want the director to say, great, moving on. I love that. Great, moving on.
Right.
Because if they think it's good, then I don't have to worry, like, oh, was I good? Was it?
Right.
I know the process. That might be an okay take. They might not even have shot me. Sometimes they do that. They'll be like, okay, that was great. We're moving on. And I might not even in the picture. And I say, well, can we have another one? The director's like, for what? You weren't in the picture. Oh, okay. I was just in the scene. I was giving my partner, I was being a good partner to the other actor.
Yeah.
So what do I want from a director? Just to give me the affirmation, okay, you did a good job, we're moving on. I hate when a director is behind the monitor and just screams out, okay, moving on. That bothers me. I mean, he can do it, or she can do it a couple of times, but I'd much rather just like, hey, great job, guys.
Yeah.
We're going, we're moving.
When I'm directing actors in a dialogue scene, a narrative, I don't look at the monitor. I want to see the performance with my eye. I hired a DP and a cameraman that I trust. I want to see that performance viscerally right up close.
Well, it works unless you got a 200, 300 millimeter lens on them and they're a quarter mile
That's
away.
a complete.
But I know, that's a different thing.
That's the
There's an exception to everything.
I look for honesty, number one, and number two, somebody knows the character just as well as I do. That is not
Yeah.
just thinking visually, but is thinking, performance. Who is this person that you're about to play? And they've done some thinking about it. That's my personal take on it. So.
And I could probably go on longer about directors that I don't like than directors that I do. A director that comes up to me like, well, what did you think?
Oh.
That's not my job. Right. That's not my job. What did I think? I don't know. I'm not directing over here.
I would never do that to
Oh, that drives me
I hate
crazy.
to say it, but I actually hear that quite a bit. You don't hear that from professional directors. They come in and they know what they're doing. They know what to ask you in the questions. But I hear that from a lot of student filmmakers, and not just here at Full Sail, but I've worked all over the country, as a lot of you have. And I hear that a lot. They'll come over and they'll say, well, so what did you think?
It's not my job to tell the director they're doing a good job.
I have no idea what to think,
Sure.
because I didn't see it. Hopefully you saw it, and that you have something to tell me, so either we move on or we stay here for a little while, But I really want, and again, that goes back to, I think it boils down to being afraid to say the wrong thing, and hoping that by opening that question, you'll say, well, why don't we do it again? That's the only thing I can think of, because what would be the response to that? I can't see it. I was interacting with this other talent, and I shouldn't have been able to watch it, and I shouldn't be even thinking about that. I should just be thinking about my motivation and my, my objectives, and that's it. So I want a director who directs.
Right.
Period. That's it. That's why the title,
Well said.
Got another question over here?
Just,
Hey guys, how's it going?
good.
Good.
After the casting's been done and you've already cast your roles, how much time would you guys say that you should spend dealing with the actors about their background, of basically the characterization of that character, and getting them to really know that? Is there like a limit, like for an actor to be like, I want to kind of go on my own, the director is pushing way too much?
Are you talking about still in the casting and the callback?
No, after the casting.
You mean in rehearsals?
Right.
Okay.
Is there like
I
a
have an answer,
line
but-
drawn there?
Well, it just depends on, again, unfortunately, what the project is. If it's a commercial, you're not going to have a lot of rehearsal time.
Right.
If it's a commercial, you actually better know your lines when you show up.
Yeah.
If it's a feature, you're going to have different kinds of rehearsal process. I mean, if there's stunts involved, that's a whole different kind of rehearsal process. If there's lines, if there's a love scene, if there's an action scene, it just depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. It also depends on what the budget is.
Right.
If the budget demands that it's a 3-week shoot and you're casting 2 months before it and you have to shoot at those 3 weeks for whatever reason you have to, that's all the time you have. So you have to work that in between everything else that's going on. So it really just depends on what the project is.
It depends on what the project is. I like for actors to do research, on their own, and then surprise me with how knowledgeable they are about the character, because they'll bring things. I don't want to color their performances too much. I want it to be innate. So they do their own research, and they find little color from the backstory of the actor that they bring to the table. Awesome. And it surprises me. I love it when that happens.
In a rehearsal, it's always great to ask an actor, why'd you do that? And then they give you some story of why they did something, and you're like, that's cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Right on, that totally justifies what you just did.
Yeah.
I personally, I like the rehearsal process a lot. I come from a theater background, so I'm used to spending a lot of time digging into the foundations of the characters. But I have been a guest star on television shows and had a little bit of time with the cast, and then I've been day player where I have no time with the cast. They literally rush you in, you rush into your scene, and you rush you out, and there's no rehearsal. It's just maybe a couple seconds to really get the camera blocking more than anything else. Not even really about your performance at that point. And that's a little disheartening as an actor to go. You spend your time, learn your lines, and you walk onto the set and kind of ushered in and ushered out. But that is the business. Television, I've found, works very, very fast. You walk in, you shoot, you're out. And it's because they're shooting all week, for one episode. And feature film, there's a little more time. There's a little more downtime where you can actually spend time talking to the director and that. But most cases, it's pretty quick unless you're the star of the show. Yes.
This is a worst case scenario. Say you're on set and it's just really not working out. The actor is just really not getting the scene. How do you, because this happens a lot with us, we're not working with professional actors. I mean, we're students ourselves. How do you direct an actor who's just really missing what you're looking for and without telling them how to act?
I have an answer for it, but
that's tough. I remember one of the first things I directed, and I was co-directing with another guy, and we must have done 15 takes, and I realized that the more takes I was doing, the worse it was getting. And he stopped me. He was just like, let's just stop, and give the actor a break, right? And then we went off, and we figured out a strategy to make that performance better. Because I figured at one point, we liked that person in casting in the audition process. And so we knew they were right for the part. So we figured it was probably something that we were doing wrong. We set the scene up wrong, and it turned out we did. So we had to stop, right? And then we had to go off on our own, work things out, and we had to break. The problem was the scene was too long. There was too much dialogue. The actor was worried about getting the lines right and not the performance. So we found a way to break the scene up. You know what I mean? To make it more manageable for them. That's based on experience.
That's why I need rehearsals, because that's where I'm trying to figure out what that problem is. And I stand by what I'm about to say. If there's a failure in the performance, it's a failure in the direction.
Yeah.
It's a breakdown in the communication somewhere where the director just did not spend the time that is necessary to get this character, where they need to be. Now, I find that a lot of directors, because I sit on a lot of sets, Tommy and Disco, we all sit on a lot of sets watching student films. And I find a lot of directors that are young, and you guys are in your early years of directing, where the tendency to break down is we run up into a wall. And we've tried everything that we know, and at this point, we don't have the bag of tricks. You don't have the bag of tricks. I have a lot of tricks.
Right.
And I'm sure these guys all have a lot of tricks that they can pull to work with actors. You don't have that yet, and you will gain that, trust me. I promise you, all directors, you will gain that knowledge at some point, but right now you don't have it. So you run up against that wall and I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do at this point. And out of frustration, you just say, well, okay, that was good, but it's not. In your heart, in most cases, when I talk to directors who show me projects that they worked on, they'll say, yeah, I love the project. Okay, good, go back to 222. And they go back to 2, and oh, yeah, that guy. I'm like, what do you mean that guy? You said you loved the project. Well, yeah, but that guy, I couldn't get what I was looking for. And I said, well, then you quit. You gave up, as a director. And I'm sorry, that sounds brutal, but it's honest. It's really what it boils down to is what is the work. And I know your schedules. You don't have to explain them to me. I know what you guys go through here. It's crazy, your schedules. But having said that, how important is your project? In the end, how important is it? How much time do you have to give up of your own personal time? And believe me, I give up a lot of mine, of my wife's time, everything, to do what I want to do. And to get that time, I have to give up something. So,
you have the luxury of being in school where mistakes will happen and they're supposed to. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
We all say that.
Right.
Don't be too hard on yourselves, but understand what happened. John Ford once said, I bypassed the arduous task of directing by casting the right actors. I totally agree with that, but you don't have the luxury of that, okay? I'll tell you this, you can shoot around a bad performance for a short time. I think in a short you might get away with it, but it's going to do something. But at the moment you have to figure out how to do it. You might have one person that has a good face, that can react well. Maybe they say the lines wrong all the time, but if you can stay on a reaction of somebody longer than that actor that's really bad, then at least you'll have something kind of to cut together that's better than what you would have had. All right? Again, I like because on the online world, students have to find their own talent, and they can't go to the places we have here. Like I say, the stables that we have here, they don't have that ability. So I have to change the way I teach them acting. I have to teach them that their best friend can do it. And I tend to go method on that style, which is work from the inside out. Work with what you know. We write what we know. Okay? We need to perform what we know. And Dustin Hoffman said it, but he was ripping off Sigmund Freud when he said it, that we are all capable of anything. That's the one language we have. We're also different snowflakes cut from all these different patterns, but there's a through line that runs through all of us, and that's called life. And by the time you're 18, you've probably hit every one of them in different severities. Like I always say, Abraham the goldfish died. Well, that's the first time you ever experienced death, so it hurts. Now, later on, when grandma dies, it's a little different, but you have experience. So I think as a director, when you have to get that organic with somebody and keep them a person and don't let them act. No acting, please. The worst thing is when you hire an actor who's naturally just good, and then they end up going to try to learn how to act in 2 weeks before the film starts. Then they get in their own heads.
Yep.
I think
That's
as
just
a
a suggestion.
as a director, working with a crew that I'm familiar with, and this isn't in every case, if I'm getting a bad performance from a day player, I'll shoot around them. There are things that improve acting and directing that have nothing to do with acting and directing.
Yep.
They are lighting, editing,
Well,
music, and you can shoot around people. I've never done it myself, because you do the casting right the first time,
Yeah.
and usually it works out. But I've seen other people do it. I was the assistant editor on a feature that we shot in LA called The Alpha Geek, and the director essentially shot around the main character. When I was editing it and putting it together, he said, anytime he's speaking, be on her.
Wow.
And I said, what? He's like, we didn't have a lot of time. I had to shoot around him.
that's where you
I was
bring
like,
the
he
sock
wrote
puppet.
it and produced it. Yeah, what? For real. It happens. It was a much better movie without him acting in it. Oh, well, he was in it, but not really.
not really.
But not really. Not really, yeah.
There's something else you can do too.
Did I say that
Let's
on
say
the internet?
Yeah. Let's say that you have
Hey,
a
Kurt.
10-minute film, okay? Or let's say it's a 7-minute film. A lot of you do 7-minute films. And it's your lead actor, and it's not working. When you go into editing, just have about 30 seconds into the film an apocalyptic explosion, and then end it on that, and just roll credits.
I love it.
And that just went out over the internet. That's a joke. I hope
Or
you
just do it all voiceover.
just call it
Hey, man,
apocalypse.
what are you doing?
Guys, we have one more question over here.
Yes.
Being on set, it gets very hectic, especially like with the first few projects here. I've had the opportunity to direct, and you have the story, you have your vision for what you want to see happen, but the hecticness of the set and having everyone doing their jobs. Basically, the question is, do you have any technique or strategy with dealing or being able to hone in on what you're supposed to be doing while you're directing? Do you go through any processes, or do you prioritize your mind in any sense when you're...
Pre-production.
Yeah, I was just going to say
yeah,
pre-production.
pre-production, I mean-
if you have a great shot list and
Right.
you have storyboards, man, you're ready to go in your head. You're ready to go. So,
Right on.
If, as long as you have spent the time talking to your keys, and your keys all know, your gaffer, your DP, all of these people, first AD, all know what's going to happen every day. Things are going to go wrong no matter what. I can tell you right now, I don't care how well you prepare, things are going to go wrong, but you're a little more prepared to move on to whatever that next shot is if you have
It's
to.
organized chaos.
Yes, it is.
At best. You got to have a strong AD. I mean, I know you guys don't always have the luxury of that, but I can't emphasize how important the AD is for the director to keep the director in directing mode. But just to reiterate what Kevin said, pre-production. You're the conductor of a massive orchestra as the director.
That's good.
So you really have to know the contribution of each instrument that you're dealing with. That goes from lighting to production design. So as long as you can communicate with your keys, and as long as they're clear on what it is you want, there'll be more harmony on set. And then the AD will back you up.
Everything on screen is about the performance. So it's my job to remain calm in the chaos, and that's what the AD is for. Exactly what Carl said, you have to have a strong AD, and your AD to say, you know what, you need to calm down because you're freaking out your talent. Oh yeah, that's right, those people.
Sure.
The people that we're supposed to be shooting so
Right.
that we see their performance. So just having that person to say, you know what, calm down, I'm gonna take care of it. Or very politely saying to the rest of your crew, can you handle that, please? Can you just take care of that? Don't come up and ask me, that's your job. That's what I hired you for, or that's what we're here to do. So just politely and maintaining that calm, because
Right.
I've gotten really,
You can get flustered.
yeah, you
It's
can get
possible.
really flustered really easy
gotta
with
keep
people.
it inside.
And then, I've had ADs come up and be like, hey, you know what? You need to calm down because your talent's 2 feet away from you.
All right.
And if you can't keep that into perspective, it just won't go right for you.
And talent's very sensitive. Actors are very sensitive people.
Absolutely.
You guys pick up on stuff. The director sets the tone. So you really have to get into your Zen mode.
You remember me and you did a shoot one time about two coal miners.
Oh, yeah.
And remember, it was my death scene, and one of the grips, and I was ready. He was helping me, and I was ready to go. I was getting ready to pop, and all of a sudden I heard somebody tell a joke this far in front of me, and it was funny to me. It was like something as why do they call seagulls seagulls? Because they flew over the bay, they'd be bagels. And I was like, and you know what? I don't like
That'd
dirty
make me
jokes.
laugh.
I don't like dirty jokes, so a grandma joke just cracks me up, And so I lost it, and I remember Clark coming over and going, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I go, "Well, right now I'm just going to be psychotic because I'm dying instead of sad." I'm like, "I'm dying, yeah, I love it. I just want to be there. I want to go wherever we're going from here." And that's so bad. You got to remember, man. The actors let you take 3 hours to set up. Well, that better not be 3 hours to set up a shot. And we're only asking for maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll never look at seagulls the same way again, I'm telling you. One of probably the most important thing for me is that, and I make it very clear whenever because I've been doing this for a little while, the directing portion of it, I don't want anybody interacting with me but my first AD. That's it. That's the only person I want coming up to me. Because what'll cause that chaos is everybody wants to talk to you because you're the guy.
Right, that's very true.
And and trust me, they're doing it because it's the best interest of the film in their mind. But everybody needs to filter through the first AD and the second ADs. If they just go to that person and the production manager, then we can just sit there and do what we're supposed to do, which is just focus I like to focus primarily on talent and performance. And I can't do that if somebody's whispering in my ear that we have an hour left on the fog machine. I can't be thinking about those things. Right. So that will help that as well as make sure, Carl said it, first AD, every director will say to you, get a good first AD, every one of them.
There's a really cool book out there, and I bought it for $1. I was up at Strand Bookstore.
I'll give you 50 cents for it.
In Manhattan. And it's called, it's by Spike Lee. And it was called By Any Means Necessary.
Oh, yeah.
Which is from Malcolm X, which was, I think, one of the best movies ever made. And it goes through all of his movies, and he's never lost money on a film. Because he makes a movie his way, the way he wants to, because he does it for so much less money. Why? Because he has a backup plan to the backup plan to the backup plan. He's shooting all the time. There's never a monsoon could hit his set. Well, I knew that was going to happen. That's why I have this over here, and we can shoot all that until they build that back up.
Yeah.
That's why he never loses a dime.
Yeah.
Well, there's more reasons why he doesn't either, which is he tells everybody, go do what they want. He makes the movie he wants to make and then makes everybody bid on it. That's why he gets the highest price.
Independent director.
That is truly an independent director.
Anybody else?
Got a couple?
I can't see. Oh, yeah, I see it.
Is there anything you guys do specifically, personally, in your callbacks that you really like to do to hone in on the right kind of person?
I like to bring people in to read with each other.
Yeah.
Because usually you got one person coming in at a time. I want to see what the chemistry is like between two people.
One of the things that I always do is I always light my casting like this room. I don't mean this much light, but I have it very intimate so the actors feel like they're actually on a set. One of the things I've never liked personally as an actor is walking into this big, bright, incandescent, bright light room. It doesn't feel like, and I'm 25 feet away from the casting director. I put the actors literally right across the table from the talent or the person they're reading with. And it just feels more intimate. They're talking the way that they would talk on set, and they're able to, and I like to talk a lot about what they've thought about in most cases, because in most cases I'm meeting them for the first time and I don't know what their process is. And we talked about this earlier that, the actors get the script and we cast them. And then they go home and they work with their coaches and they work with all these people, and everything that you saw in that callback has just changed. And the first thing I'll say is have you been studying with somebody on this script? And they'll usually say, yeah, I worked with my coach for, like 2. It's okay, good. Well, we're going to be changing some of this, just so you know, because it's not exactly what I was liking when I saw you in the auditions. And actors are taught in LA. When I was in LA, you're taught, you do what you did in that audition when you go to the callback. You don't go changing everything, because that director's going to go, well, what is this? That's not what you sent me on tape. That's a completely different performance. So they like what they see, and that's why they bring you back.
I think something that I do on a callback is I get a little bit more intimate with the actor in terms of I want to hear their story. I want to hear what they're like. So I listen a lot, because
that's it.
Actors always have a story to tell, even if it's what happened to them on their way over or what happened to them a couple of days ago.
That's where I heard your story, by the way, about your acting. When I went in to audition for you for a music video a while back, that's where you told me your story about being an actor. That's why I know it, yeah.
Very good, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get intimate with the actor, like on the callback. In the beginning, they're just another face. I'm going through the process with the casting director, but on the callbacks, I get a little closer with them.
It's about trust and building relationships.
Yep. Absolutely.
As the casting director, that's where the first trust and the relationship begins, and then as the director, you're going to be asking these people to do things that they would not necessarily do in normal life, and they have to trust you. So building the rapport, finding out who they are. Two people. There's only 2 kinds of people that you want in your life: friends and fans. Friends and fans. and hopefully they can be both, and your fans turn into your friends because that's who you want to work with. So it's, it's about trust. We've all known each other for a long time, and we would trust each other to do the right thing on a set if we were working, whereas you guys, we might not know as intimately, and we want to get to know you, so we're friends or fans of each other.
You're gonna make me cry, Disco.
That almost got me there.
Somebody's
Hey,
back.
guys.
Hey,
John Drackett. I teach over at Candyland. I've had an interesting experience several times, even in the most recent short that I directed. I had a technique actor who just the way he was, first time, bang, that's exactly what I want. And then the other one is a method actor who loves just endless rehearsal and time. And it worked well, but it was a little bit of a challenge working with two completely different styles of actors, and they're interacting with each other, giving each one what they want, I don't know if you have any comments on that, especially technique actors. There are probably less of them. And then a lot of method actors, and when you mix and match them together, you get an interesting rehearsal process.
you always get people of different varying study techniques, always. It
Always.
never works out that everybody came from truthful acting, or,
Right.
it just doesn't work out that way. And it's just because that's the casting process, but.
I worked with Jim Caviezel once
yeah.
on Job. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But he does this weird thing. Before every take, he does 30 push-ups. And we're all set to go. Everything's lit. We've blocked it out. The actors are ready to go. And we're just watching Jim do his 30 push-ups every single time. And that's his technique.
He's purging.
Yeah.
exactly
He
what
said
he's
something
doing.
along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's purifying himself. But I think all actors respect other actors' techniques. So it works.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a film where everybody's a method actor. I don't know how that would
I don't
end
think
up.
you'd ever see it.
I don't think it could happen.
I personally, I run across this all the time where I have different varying degrees of techniques. And, the biggest thing is, are they listening to each other? Do they understand the relationship between each other? If there's a chemistry there, do they understand what that is? And to me, that's more important than anything else. And I got to tell you, actors do not want to look bad.
Yeah.
They flat out never want to look bad on camera. So if I go over and I say, look, right now, you guys are fighting each other, and it's not coming across you. I need you guys to come together on this. And it's usually for me in the rehearsal process where we run into this, And once they hear that, they'll adjust and they'll change because they don't want to look bad on camera. If I tell them it's not working, that's going to change, because I'm not going to allow it, first of all. Secondly, they don't want that to happen. So I think it's really about communication. I'm not familiar with your project and what happened, but I'd like to talk to you at some time about it, after this, if you have some time to talk about it, because I'm always interested in that, that little struggle that people go through.
I think a lot of the lines in acting are starting to disappear because there's a really great book. I don't know, a brook. We can go drink from it. A really great book that was written by Larry Moss called The Intent to Live, which became a Bible for a long time. And what he did, he was a student of Stella Adler. He was a student of Strasberg, of Stanislavski, and all these people. And what he did is he realized that acting teachers hated each other and they hated each other's style. But what he did, he was kind of the, he went around to all of them and studied from them and put it all together to where it actually means something now, to where there is really no classical anymore. There is really no, but there are some throwbacks that's happening. And I think what I do with mine that are like that, I don't rehearse with them together all the time. I had a guy who his name was Dave Jackson, was a wonderful actor, but he was just an improvisational genius. But he had to do it 20 times. He had to get it all out of himself. He'd come in and do cartwheels. I thought Chris Farley on acid. I'm like, this is crazy. And I finally just sat and I'd watch him. So I'd get him to the set 20 minutes early.
Yeah.
So he could bang his head on the wall and act like a chicken and do everything he had to do so he didn't scare the other guy.
Yeah.
So when the other guy came in, I knew he was going to get it on 1 or 2 takes and we'd just talk a little bit. So I made sure not to, and I told him, you guys are going to surprise each other. I know you know what's on the script, but maybe you don't. So you better listen. That's the key word in everything. Actors have to listen, directors have to listen. It's all about listening.
Very true. Up here?
Question?
Oh, sorry.
I am a current student, and I've been through the directing, and I just finished 16, actually. So I've done a couple projects, and I generally do the script supervisor position, which I love. It's what I want to segue into when I leave Full Sail. My question goes back to what you were talking about between your relationship as a director with the first AD. My job as a script supervisor is continuity and catching things on set while they're having a take and making sure everything is what's supposed to be. As a script supervisor, what is the, who do you go to? Do you go to the first AD, or does it depend on the director?
I like my script supervisors. I'm close to my script supervisors.
Me too. Yeah.
You know, you're editing the picture with me on set. Is very important. Every script supervisor I ever worked with came directly to me. The AD is more on the logistics, organizational stuff, managing the set. You know, there are times when you may have to interact with the first AD, but your relationship should be with the director.
Always.
99%.
Kevin did say he only wants the AD, but I'm sure he meant to include
Yeah,
the script. The script soup is, he's talking to the AD, and the script soup's coming to him.
Yeah, that's bad that I said it because it does say, it implies that. But the script soup's like on my side, on my hip, everywhere I go. And quite frankly, I like him to be this light little voice.
Right.
That's just saying, okay, that was out of continuity. That was a continuity issue, or just something. So I can be focusing on this. And sometimes they will literally point to the monitor for me. And just point right at that, and I'll concentrate on it then and see, okay, yeah, that was empty or full or whatever, or something's out of place. But yeah, that script supervisor is so critical because I can't watch that stuff. Directors just can't spend time.
And if they
on
can
it.
fix something without talking to me, that's great too.
Yeah.
Like they'll just tell somebody, so grip standing right, hey, change
And that's
that,
when
and then,
they would communicate with the first AD.
With the first AD, and
Yep.
you'd go to the first for that. Yeah.
I actually found that works really well with my 16 project that I was on. Just pointing to the screen, and the director usually catches it immediately, and then we get to the end of the take, they'll go fix it.
Yeah.
I just want, because I've heard it both ways, and I just wanted to be sure who I should.
Probably the best thing to do is just find your way with every director because every director works differently, every first AD works differently. And probably one of the best questions to say is, look, this is the way I worked in the past, but how do you like to work? And boom, you got it locked up in a second, and now you know. And you'll find out within 5-10 minutes of working with them exactly how they work anyway.
I always tell everybody it's like you're working in the mafia. You don't want the feds to hear you. I'm serious. If we're going to talk, we're going to whisper to each other. And the reason why is this happened to me on one of my first projects I ever worked on, and I was scared. I mean, and I made everybody think I was good. And here I go. And so I'm out there, and it's like, all right, you've been talking yourself up. So I almost cussed right then. I'm sorry. You've been talking yourself up. So now you got to pay off. Well, I happened to work with probably one of the best script soups around here. I don't know if she's still working around here anymore. Her name was Jillian Hamburgy. And man, she made me look so good. And my God, she knew how to do it too. She'd just come over, and I was like, I owe her about 20,000 dinners or whatever. She was just the best because she knew what I was going through. And I actually would come up to her and go, okay, I got to do a shot, reverse shot. I owe this dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, yes, you owe it. But at the same time, why don't you get a cutaway like that? This way there. I'm like, yeah. I learned more from her than I've ever learned anywhere in my life.
That's why I said they're almost like an editor on set with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like first-time directors, you better have a seasoned first AD, a seasoned DP, and definitely the crowning jewel is the script soup.
Yeah, those are the three that I need the most. The DP worries about the gaffer. I don't worry about the gaffer, the DP way. But those three people I got to have. Yeah, it's very important. Yes, there's somebody up here. Is this a love question again?
All right.
I still want to do a love scene. I get two people up here.
That would be hilarious.
Make that happen.
Actually, I just finished the first out of 2 35 films I'm working on, and One
As
thing
a
I
director,
noted.
as a director?
No, not this
Oh,
time.
okay.
I was actually making a wardrobe for that one. I
Oh,
like
okay.
working with the actors anytime I can.
Nice.
So one thing I noticed though, and I've experienced this as when I have directed stuff, is that, you know, occasionally the keys will step on each other's toes. You know, someone will kind of say something that's a little bit out of their bounds, like either, you know, it could be something as simple as the DP saying, like, he's not in frame as I want to, and then they tell the actor directly to move or whatever. And I just see that with a lot of things. So, like, as the director whose main job is to help bring everything together from all departments and make, like, this wonderful film, how do you allow, how does the director handle something like that without losing their grip, or like basically establishing like what's your role in everything?
Private
like
conversations. I mean, I've gone off with the DP and said, you know, please don't direct the talent.
Yep.
I'll have but never on the set in front of
Right.
everybody else. You just don't. It's just not a good scene to do.
As an actor, the second, third day of filming, you know everybody who's working the camera.
Right.
The camera guy just goes, hey, Disco, can you just... He's not directing me. He's just telling me to move 2 inches over so I can be in frame or whatever it is. And there's not... I've never really had a problem with that. The director doesn't even know that he's told me. It's just something that's got fixed. You know, it's not a big deal. I'm not going to go to the director and be like, can you tell your cameraman to stop telling me what to do, or the DP, or... I mean, because these things happen just so fast.
Right,
It's just
right.
like... And it's all about moving fast because it's a timeline and it's money and it's, you know, it's all those things. So it just makes it easy. You know, what makes your life simple with staying in the rules of what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do? You just have conversations with people, just normal conversations of, hey, is it all right? You know, and the camera people at some point can, you know, be like, hey, we told your actor, you know, after, you know, later, you know, in the wrap up or something. Where it doesn't really matter. It's not hindering anything. It's like Kevin said earlier. It's everybody's there to do the same thing, which is make the best project that you possibly can.
Yep.
You-
We're all
you-
in it for the same reason.
You know,
so.
as crew people need to learn to stay in their lane. You know, everybody needs to play their position and their part. And, you know, that happens with professional people. I've seen you guys as sets sometimes, and a third grip will make a suggestion to a director out loud, you know, and that not only throws the director off, but it throws the talent off too, because now the talent is losing their faith in the director, you know, and then it becomes a free-for-all. Right. So once again, you know, this is very important pre-production for your first AD to lay down the law. You know, and so to keep everybody in their lane to do their jobs. Now, just like Disco said, you know, a DP is where that could be a little different, or a cameraman, because they're a little bit more intimate with the actor than a grip or a craft service person or a PA would be. But everybody needs to play their position.
And it's what Tommy said earlier. Anything you say around the talent,
Oh, yeah.
anything,
Yep.
goes in.
Yep.
It goes right in there and can totally screw things up. So a suggestion to somebody else, whether it's the director or not, about what's going on, not a good idea in front of the talent.
Yeah, if you want to create chaos for your performers, let those arguments happen in front of them.
Yep.
And you just stage them sometimes. If the actor's not giving them what you want, tell them you're going to fire them right now. You don't have any talent. Beat it.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I did that with a child actor one
In
time.
the back?
Oh, to make them cry?
No, I told him, I got to fire you. I got to cast another little boy because it's just not working. And you're not going to get paid. And the kid...
And your mommy doesn't like you.
Well, that was better than saying I just ripped your dog's head off. No. But what happened was, I talked to his parents first. And I said, what motivates this kid? And they said, money. He wants to buy a computer for his sister. He wants to take us to dinner, you know, McDonald's. And I was like, I said, can I do something with him? Because he's just playing. He's being a clown right now. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, go ahead, don't hit him. I'm like, I've never hit anybody at that. I mean, well, so, not a child or a woman. So what happened was, yeah, I said it to him. I said, hey, you're having fun, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, buddy. I said, here we go. I got to let you go. I got another little boy coming in that's going to do the part. I'm sorry, I can't pay you because I got to give it to him. And he's like, And I'm like, yeah, so if you want, and the camera's rolling. That's why we tail slate.
Yeah.
Okay, so the camera's rolling. I just kind of ducked out of the scene, and the kid's like, oh, God. It was beautiful. And then afterward, I had to tell him, hey, it's all a joke. I was just joking with you. Get away from me. and then finally, by the end, we were hugging, and everything was beautiful. The mom and dad came in and said, he fooled you. And then I had to pay him more.
Oh. Hey guys, I've got a question. Once you've gone through the casting process and you've got your leads in mind, you've called them and let them know that they got the part, do you have backups in mind already for those people?
There's a trusting guy right there. Here's my second team, my third team.
Second and third. You already have
You always
picked
have
them. You've
backups
already
in mind?
picked them because you've gone through the casting process. They're already there.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the casting process. You know who, well, if this person's not available, then I call this person and this person.
Right.
So they're already there.
Now, once you've called the first people you have in mind, and then you have somebody drop out on you, how do you break it to the person you had in second place? How do you break it to them that they weren't the first choice?
If
Do you let them
they've
know?
done a couple of projects, that happens all the time. Not a big deal. Just like, all right, whatever.
I find that most actors wanted that part in the first place.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're calling them and somebody dropped out, they're like, great. You know, they want that part. That's why they were there.
You're talking about the other person, the other cast members, right?
Like if your first choice
Oh, I'm sorry. I
drops
thought you
out
meant the
and
person you were actually,
you called
okay.
this guy you had second.
Yeah.
I don't tell them. I write the 3 people that I want in the script. I write their names down, and then whoever I pick, that's fine. I always use pencil. So I circle it, and I always tell them, see, you were my first choice.
I am so using that.
And then if I have to go to the other one, I erase it and put it there. See, I wanted to
So
the
buy
whole
number
time.
2 pencils.
That's awesome.
With good erasers. That's brilliant.
I'm using that.
Thank you,
You
guys.
were always my first choice. That's
Doing
great.
that. That's a good one.
Anybody else? How much time do we have?
We got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. We're all going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya now. This is one of our favorites now.
That's fine.
I've always wondered about a couple things that we didn't get to here, so let me go back to some of these. An actor's demo reel versus the actual person coming in the room varies a lot for me, but how much weight do you put into that IMDb credit that everybody tends to look at, and you know what I'm saying? And resume that they can pad. Actors are famous for padding their resumes.
Right. I'll let you go first. Yep. That.
The actor's demo reel is important, but that's not what's going to get you the job. Because they're going to look at that while they're deciding whether or not they want to cast you. Nowadays, so many things are just being put on tape. You don't even have to go to an audition anymore.
Yeah.
You just need to be put on tape, because what they're going to do at the audition is put you on tape and send it to the casting director. So the casting director will see that tape, depending on the quality, whether it's shot at your house or at a facility like this or at a studio, those different qualities. They might want to take an additional look at what you're actually capable of doing, which is where your demo reel would come into play. Also, on a casting site, for example, Heather Hines 24/7, Casting 24/7, you can put your demo reel on there, and people are getting cast directly from that demo reel.
Those are usually the book-a-look commercials that they can take person for $300 or whatever, and that's great. It works well in that.
Here's the other thing. YouTube, if you get 100,000 hits and you're on that video, that is your casting demo reel.
Pretty much.
You guys see that dubstep one with that guy doing that dance, like to a real slow song? You guys all have to look it up. But he's got, 1 million, 2 million hits, something like that, and he's just getting cast right from that video for that particular thing. How long that's going to last, I don't know. But you can get cast.
It's
right
a whole
from the internet
nother,
stuff,
when we all started in the business, there was no internet, there was no computers. You didn't have this access. You had to go in and audition and get it submitted, and it was a whole different time. What you guys can do now, you have a lot of avenues that you can get your work out there. YouTube's great. Disco said YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I went to Playlist Live, and which is a huge YouTube convention, and I couldn't believe how the YouTubers got mobbed.
Oh, yeah.
They're stars now.
Yeah.
You know, Jenna Marbles and all those, you know, Smush
True.
and Shay Carl, all those guys, they're stars, and they're being looked at now by, you know, networks and studios. But as far as me looking at an actor's reel, it's all I know from that is that they have a technique. You know, I don't know what the words on the page are going to sound like coming out of their mouths.
Good point.
I need to see that.
Good point.
You know what I mean? But when if I cast a model for a music video, or an actor for a music video that has no dialogue, no lines, and they look great, that's enough for me. Because if they can't act, I could always throw on the 48 frames per second. You know, slow-mo them, and all of a sudden they're awesome.
Here's the other thing for you guys as filmmakers, just a tip. You have to stay social media relevant.
Absolutely.
Okay, for example, I am an actor, and I've got, hypothetically, 100,000 Twitter followers, right? Which I don't. Working on. Follow me on Twitter.
Disco at Twitter?
Or director, yeah. Disco San Andreas at Twitter. And I go to a casting director and say, by the way, if you cast me in this commercial, I'm going to put it out to 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And there's the business, the show business part of it, okay? So if you don't want to use Facebook, okay, somebody else will. If you don't want to use Twitter, and all you have to do is link them all to Instagram, and they all go to the same thing.
Right.
So all you need to do is link them to each other and just do one post. But get fans and friends.
Right.
Because that will help you when you're getting jobs and when people say, oh, they're going to put this out to 3,000, 10,000, 100,000 people.
Right. Tommy, anything on the
No, I
demo
keep
reels?
thinking about Clark Griswold, the dog, the talking dog. Yeah? Yeah? What was in there? That's all I keep thinking about.
I show that in class, every single class. 'cause
I'm
think
sorry, I
that's the
zoned
funniest-
out for a second. I'm just thinking about talking animals right now. I don't know. And they're making money. I saw where Clark W. Griswold is making a lot of money, that
Oh,
dog.
really?
I'm talking
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, it's not the only video. He does a lot of those, yeah. So he's.
No, but the actual dog itself.
Oh, you're talking about the dog. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about the guy's name that
No,
ran the
no.
videos. Oh, okay.
They're using them.
What else we got casting, directing, Kev? What do you
Well,
got?
I was just wondering, does anybody have any question based on what I said, or should I move on? Because I can ask more questions.
That is Hines.
Heather Hines.
Heather Hines. Hines
24/7.
24/7. There are, you can log on there as an casting director and an actor.
I think you go in, because you have to pay for the service, but it's really reasonable what she does. And then you're on this site. So what happens is people converge to this site looking for, we're doing a Pepsi commercial and we need somebody to, to be a guy that walks in and says one line. It's not usually major parts. If it's a big commercial, they're going to do a big casting. But they come in and they're looking for somebody for a specific thing. And you go in and you say to her, I don't know, let's say it's $30. I don't know what it costs. And you go in and she tapes you and she puts you on it as a commercial and as a monologue and all these things. And then they can go in and find you that way. So it's virtually a demo reel in a mass sense instead of it being your own page. I personally believe actors should have their own web page with their own name to it, with their own demo reels on there, because that's just more business-like. But if you're starting out and you don't have a lot there, that's a great place to go to actually start.
One more thing. All the agents, local agents, and casting directors are now on Facebook.
Yep.
So if you are looking to, if you guys are really interested in casting, you can find these folks. You can go on IMDb Pro and find out who the casting agent is, where they work, send them a letter and say, hey, I'm interested in interning at your
John
casting
Paris,
agency.
Mark Mullen, RJ, they all have Facebook pages and they're easy. Lori Wyman, huge casting director in Miami.
And they're putting out castings as well, which is really interesting.
There are times when Lori will post a thing and say, look, I need this guy, this type, this height, on Friday morning. She'll literally do that. And then everybody goes out searching through their friends to find it. It's a brilliant way to do it when you can't find someone. Using the social network it's as important as anything else you can do in this business now.
Which is why you should respect your social network portals. And what I mean by that is don't do crazy, embarrassing things and put it on Facebook. because your future employer is going to be looking at that.
Current
That's-
employer.
Current, right. And that's for forever.
Yes.
You know? So be mindful
Don't drink
of that.
before you go on Facebook. That's
Yeah.
what I always say.
I always just say, I was acting in that.
You can get away with that. Totally.
Did you believe that?
That was an amazing performance, I tell you.
And cut. It's so great. Anyone else?
Drinking wine right from the bottle and graham crackers.
Keg stands.
How are we doing on time? 2 minutes out. Should I do a wrap, or are we going to finish up?
If you don't have any more questions, it's up to you.
Anyone else at all? After today, we can't talk to you. Now, you know we're always available. You can get a hold of us, so.
You can find us on the internet.
Yes, we're on the internet
Absolutely,
always.
all of us.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for showing up here today. First of all, for being here. Secondly, I'd like to thank my panel, if you would thank them as well.
We'd like to thank you.
And thank
you,
me.
Kevin. Thank you. Yes.
Good
thank
job,
you.
Kevin.
Yes, Kevin. Kevin O'Neill.
That's funny. Yeah, pretty funny. All right, thank you very much, folks.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
You may all go home now. Or no, to the next panel.
To the next panel, yes.
Enjoy your Hall of Fame.